Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people who, instead of enriching your life, drain it of energy? People who leave you exhausted, frustrated, and unenthusiastic. How do we recognize toxic people in our lives? What are the signs that someone is undermining our inner peace? But above all, how do we behave with these people so that they do not take away our serenity and joy in life? If you stay until the end of this video, you will discover 12 smart ways to deal with toxic people and prevent them from stealing your precious energy. You will learn to recognize the different types of toxic people, how to set healthy boundaries, and protect your inner peace. Join us on this journey to discover Buddhist wisdom and Stoic teachings and learn to cultivate serenity even in the midst of life's storms. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. The sun rose behind the mountain peaks, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. The golden light filtered through the leaves of the ancient maples that surrounded the mountain temple, enveloping it in an aura of peace and serenity. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of incense, and the silence was broken only by the soft gurgling of a nearby spring. A dozen pilgrims from every corner of Japan sat in meditation, their faces turned toward Master Kenzo, an elderly monk with a long white beard and eyes as dark and deep as the starry night. Kenzo, with a slow and measured gesture, opened his eyes and began to speak in a warm and enveloping voice. Dear pilgrims, you have undertaken a long journey to reach this sacred place in search of inner peace and enlightenment. But the path to serenity can be tortuous, full of obstacles and unpleasant encounters. The world out there is filled with people who, like rivers in flood, can overwhelm us with their negativity and disturb the peace of our spirit. Today, I will teach you 12 ways to deal with these toxic people, inspired by Buddhist wisdom and the teachings of the ancient Stoics. Identify the weeds in your mind. Imagine your mind as a lush garden. Kenzo began, a place to cultivate positive thoughts, serene emotions, and wisdom. But in every garden, along with the fragrant flowers, there also grow invasive weeds, ready to suffocate the beauty and steal nourishment from the more delicate plants. Toxic people are like these weeds. They insinuate themselves into our minds with poisonous criticism, incessant complaints, sneaky manipulations, and they suck our vital energy. Learn to recognize them, to pick them out from the crowd, as the expert gardener distinguishes the beneficial plants from the invasive ones. Kenzo paused, looking at the attentive faces of the pilgrims. A young woman, her eyes shining, raised her hand. Master, how can we distinguish these weeds from people who, despite having defects, do not pose a threat to our serenity? That's a good question, my daughter. Kenzo replied with a benevolent smile. Toxic people come in many forms like weeds in a garden. There are the vines, which cling to us with their thirst for attention and approval, suffocating our individuality. There are the thorns, which prick with sharp words and poisonous gossip, hurting anyone who comes near. And then there are the parasites, which feed on our energy, leaving us exhausted and drained after every interaction. A friend who constantly belittles your successes, a relative who criticizes you for no reason, a colleague who entrusts you with his tasks while complaining about his bad luck. These are examples of weeds that infest the garden of your mind. Learn to recognize them, to give them a name, and you will be halfway there. Establish clear boundaries. Imagine that you are an emperor, Kenzo continued, responsible for the safety and well-being of your kingdom. You must defend your borders wisely and firmly, repelling invaders and protecting your subjects. Likewise, you must build strong walls around your inner peace, establishing clear and uncrossable boundaries with toxic people. An old man, his face weathered by time, spoke up, "Master, but how can we set these boundaries without hurting the feelings of others? Shouldn't we be compassionate towards all living beings?" "Compassion is a fundamental virtue," Kenzo replied, "but it must not turn into weakness or permissiveness. By setting limits, you are not rejecting the person, but their toxic behavior. It is an act of love towards yourself and, in a sense, also towards the other person who has the opportunity to reflect on his or her actions. If a friend continually asks you for unreasonable favors, if a relative harshly criticizes your life choices, if a colleague inundates you with complaints, don't be afraid to say no. Express your needs clearly and assertively without feeling guilty. Remember, your serenity is a precious asset that must be carefully guarded. Use the repetition technique against manipulators. Manipulators are skilled at distorting reality, making you doubt yourself, and bending your will to theirs, Kenzo continued. To resist their schemes, use the technique of repetition, a powerful weapon forged in the forge of Stoic wisdom. When a manipulator tries to influence you with flattery, guilt trips, or threats, calmly and firmly repeat your position like a broken record. Do not get involved in sterile discussions or power games. Your consistency, like a constantly repeated mantra, will disarm the manipulator and force them to desist. Kenzo paused, then told a story. One day, a merchant went to a Zen master to ask for advice on how to deal with a particularly difficult customer, known for his exaggerated demands and his ability to manipulate suppliers. The master replied, "When this customer makes an unreasonable request, simply repeat, 'I can't do it.' Don't add excuses, don't get into arguments, just repeat those 3 words calmly and firmly." The merchant followed the master's advice, and to his surprise, the customer, after a few attempts at manipulation, gave in and accepted the merchant's conditions. The repetition technique is not a mean trick, but a way to protect your integrity and inner peace. It is like an invisible barrier that repels negative energies and preserves your serenity. Don't react to provocations. Toxic people are masters of the art of provocation, Kenzo said. They know which buttons to push to make you lose your temper, to trigger your anger and make you react impulsively. But don't fall into their trap. Your reaction is their nourishment, the lifeblood that fuels their toxic behavior. When you feel provoked, take a step back, breathe deeply, and observe the situation with detachment, as if you were a spectator of a theatrical performance. Do not get emotionally involved. Your calm and indifference will be your best defense. Kenzo turned to a young monk sitting at the back of the room. "Taro, tell us the story of the samurai and the peasant." The young monk bowed and began to tell his story. One day, a samurai, famous for his skill with the sword and his fiery temper, was passing through a village when a drunken peasant began to insult and provoke him. The samurai, feeling offended, drew his sword ready to attack. But suddenly he stopped, sheathed his sword, and continued on his way, ignoring the peasant. The astonished bystanders asked him why he had not punished the peasant for his insolence. The samurai replied, "A wise warrior does not waste his energy on those who are unworthy. My sword is too precious to be used against a drunkard." Like the samurai, Kenzo concluded, do not waste your energy on those who only seek to provoke you. Your inner peace is too precious a treasure to be sacrificed on the altar of anger and resentment. Choose silence. In a world dominated by noise and frenzy, silence has become a rare and precious commodity, Kenzo said in a calm voice. But silence is not just the absence of words, it is an empty space full of potential, an opportunity to listen to the inner voice and to connect with the deep wisdom of our being. When faced with provocations, insults, unfair criticism, choose silence. Do not fuel the fire of discord with useless words. Your calm and composure will disarm the aggressor, who will find himself facing an impenetrable wall of silence. Like an echo lost in the void, his toxic words will dissolve without a trace. Kenzo smiled, recalling an episode from his past. Years ago, when I was still a young monk, I was sent to a village to help resolve a dispute between two families. When I arrived at the village, I found tempers flaring and hateful words flying like poisoned arrows. Instead of intervening immediately, I sat quietly in the center of the square, closed my eyes, and began to meditate. At first, people continued to shout at each other, but then gradually, silence crept in between their shouts. One by one, they fell silent, curious about my behavior. When I finally opened my eyes, I found them all silent, their eyes turned toward me. In that moment of quiet, we were finally able to begin a constructive dialogue and find a peaceful solution to the conflict. Silence, Kenzo concluded, is a powerful tool to diffuse anger, to calm the spirits, and to create a space for authentic listening. Use it wisely, and you will discover its transformative power. Don't let it influence you. Toxic people exude an aura of negativity, like a dark cloud that threatens to obscure our inner sky. Kenzo continued, but we have the power to choose whether to be enveloped by that cloud or to keep a safe distance. Do not allow their negative emotions to contaminate your serenity. Observe the behavior of toxic people with detachment, as a naturalist studies a wild animal in its habitat. Do not judge, do not criticize, do not try to change them. Welcome their presence with equanimity, knowing that their behavior is a reflection of their inner suffering. A middle-aged woman with a worried expression asked, "Master, how can we avoid being influenced by the negativity of those around us? Isn't it inevitable that we absorb the emotions of others, especially if they are people we care about?" Of course, it is natural to be influenced by the emotions of others, Kenzo replied, but we can learn to filter out negative energies, to protect our minds from unwanted intrusions. Imagine having an invisible filter surrounding you, which lets only positive emotions pass through and blocks negative ones. This filter is your awareness, your ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without identifying with them. When you are faced with a toxic person, remember to activate your filter. Observe their words and behaviors without getting emotionally involved. Keep your mind calm and centered, like a tranquil lake that reflects the sky without being disturbed by the waves. Seek the support of positive people. On our path to serenity, we are not alone, Kenzo said with a reassuring smile. There are people around us who, like bright stars, radiate positivity, wisdom, and compassion. Seek their company, feed on their beneficial energy, and let their light guide you. Positive people are like majestic trees that offer shelter and support. Share your joys and worries with them, be inspired by their examples, and learn from their wisdom. Their presence will help you counteract the negative effects of toxic people and keep your spirits high. A young man with a shy look asked, "Master, But how can we find these positive people? Where can we look for their company? Positive people are everywhere. Kenzo replied, in the most unexpected places. You might meet them in a temple, a library, a park, or even a coffee shop. They are people who exude an aura of peace and kindness, who listen attentively and speak with wisdom. They are people who make you feel at ease, who inspire you to be better, and who support you on your journey. Seek their company, hang out in environments they love, participate in activities they are passionate about, and above all, be a source of positivity for others yourself. Share your inner light, and you will attract people who resonate with your frequency. Take care of yourself. Dealing with toxic people can be an exhausting experience, draining our physical and emotional energy. Kenzo continued, that's why it's so important to take care of yourself, to dedicate time to your well-being and to nourishing your spirit. Just as a warrior prepares for battle by sharpening his sword and donning his armor, we must prepare for life's challenges by taking care of our bodies and minds. Allow yourself moments of rest and relaxation, practice meditation, immerse yourself in nature, eat healthy foods, and indulge in activities that bring you joy and serenity. Kenzo turned to an elderly woman, her face marked by the years. Tell us how taking care of yourself has helped you face the difficulties of life. The woman smiled and began to tell. When I was young, I had to face many trials, the loss of loved ones, illness, economic difficulties, but I always found comfort in taking care of myself. Every morning, I would get up before dawn to meditate and practice yoga. During the day, I devoted myself to gardening, growing flowers, and aromatic plants. In the evening, I read poetry books and listened to classical music. These small practices helped me maintain my inner balance and face adversity with serenity. Self-care, Kenzo concluded, is not a luxury, but a necessity. It is an act of love towards ourselves, which allows us to face life's challenges with strength and resilience. Don't absorb toxicity. Toxic people are like distorting mirrors that reflect a distorted image of ourselves. Kenzo said with a firm voice, don't be fooled by their criticisms, their judgments, their projections. Keep your vision clear and objective, aware of your value and your uniqueness. Imagine yourself as a lighthouse in the midst of a storm. Your inner light shines brightly, no matter what waves crash against your base. Don't let the negativity of others extinguish your light. Keep your mind calm and centered, like a clear sky that observes the chaos of the world without being disturbed by it. A man with a sorrowful expression asked, Master, how can we avoid absorbing the toxicity of others? Isn't it inevitable that we will be hurt by their words and actions? Of course, it's natural to feel hurt by the words and actions of others. Kenzo replied, but we can learn not to identify with those wounds, not to let ourselves be defined by the negativity of others. Remember, their words and actions are a reflection of their inner suffering, not of your worth. When you feel attacked, step back and look at the situation with detachment. Ask yourself, is this criticism valid? Does it truly reflect who I am, or is it just a projection of the other person's negativity? If the criticism is unfounded, let it go like a dry leaf in the wind. If there is some truth to it, use it as an opportunity to grow and improve. Let others follow their own path. Every living being has its own path to walk, its own lesson to learn, its own karma to face. Kenzo said with a wise voice, we cannot force anyone to change, to follow our path, to see the world through our eyes. We can offer our guidance, our support, our compassion, but we must accept that everyone has the right to make their own choices, even the wrong ones. Just as a gardener cannot force a flower to bloom before its time, so we cannot force others to change. We can create favorable conditions for growth. We can offer water and nourishment, but we must respect each person's times and ways. A young woman with a sad expression asked, "Master, but what should we do when a person dear to us behaves in a toxic way? How can we reconcile the love we feel for him with the need to protect our serenity?" This is one of the most difficult challenges that life presents us. Kenzo replied with compassion. When someone close to us behaves in a toxic way, we are faced with a painful dilemma. On the one hand, we want to help them, support them, heal their suffering. On the other, we must protect ourselves from their negativity. There is no easy solution. Each situation is unique and requires careful discernment. If you have tried to communicate your needs, set boundaries, and offer support, but the person continues to behave toxically, you may have to make the painful decision to walk away, at least temporarily. This is not an act of selfishness, but of self-love. Sometimes distance is the only way for both of you to heal and grow. Kenzo told the story of a young woman who cared for her sick mother, who suffered from a severe form of depression. The mother, with her pessimism and incessant complaints, poisoned the family atmosphere, dragging her daughter into a vortex of negativity. The young woman, torn between her love for her mother and the need to protect her own mental health, decided to turn to a Zen master. The master advised her to distance herself from her mother for a while, to take a break to find her own serenity. The young woman followed the master's advice and, after a few months away, returned to her mother with new strength and awareness. In the meantime, her mother had begun a course of therapy, and thanks to her daughter's support, she managed to improve her condition. Sometimes, Kenzo concluded, walking away is the only way to truly love. It's an act of courage and compassion, which allows both of you to find your way back. Practice the art of detachment. Detachment is not indifference or coldness, but a form of wisdom that allows us to observe reality with clarity and objectivity without being overwhelmed by emotions. Kenzo explained, "It is the ability to accept what we cannot change, to let go of what is no longer ours, to flow with the flow of life without resistance." When we cling to people or situations that cause us suffering, we are like shipwrecked people clinging to a wreck in the middle of a stormy sea. Detachment is like learning to swim, to let go and trust the force of the water that supports us. A businessman with a tense expression asked, "Master, but how can we practice detachment in daily life, in a world that constantly pushes us to accumulate, to possess, to control?" "Detachment begins in the mind," Kenzo replied. "Observe your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, without identifying with them. Like clouds passing through the sky, let them flow without resistance. Do not attach yourself to results, expectations, illusions. Embrace the present with openness and curiosity without clinging to the past or worrying about the future." In practical life, detachment manifests itself in the ability to let go of what no longer serves us. Objects, relationships, habits, beliefs. Make room for the new, for change, for growth. Be like the river that flows towards the sea, adapting to the terrain, overcoming obstacles without ever losing its direction. Forgive yourself. Forgiveness is a balm that soothes the wounds of the heart, an act of compassion that frees us from the chains of the past. Kenzo said in a soft voice, "Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or justifying, but accepting what has happened, learning from the experiences, and moving forward with serenity. Often, we are harder on ourselves than on others. We carry within us the weight of past mistakes, regrets, guilt. But the past is immutable. We cannot change it. We can only accept it, learn from it, and forgive ourselves for our imperfections. A young woman with tears in her eyes confessed, "Master, I have made many mistakes in my life. I have hurt people dear to me. I have made bad decisions. I have wasted precious opportunities. How can I forgive myself and move on?" Self-forgiveness is a process, not an event. Kenzo replied gently, "Start by acknowledging your mistakes without judging or condemning yourself. Accept that you are a human being, imperfect and fallible, like everyone else. Learn from your experiences, among the valuable lessons from your mistakes, and use them as a springboard for your future. Imagine having a wound that refuses to heal. Forgiveness is like a medicine that disinfects the wound, that promotes healing, and that soothes the pain. Don't be afraid to apply this medicine to yourself. You deserve your compassion, your kindness, your forgiveness." Kenzo concluded his speech with a deep bow. "Dear pilgrims, you have listened attentively to my words. Now take them with you on your journey, put them into practice in your daily life, and you will discover the transformative power of Buddhist wisdom. May you find inner peace and serenity, even amidst the challenges and difficulties that life will present you." The pilgrims, deeply touched by the Master's words, stood up and bowed in turn, expressing their gratitude. As they left the temple, enveloped in the golden light of the morning, they took with them not only Kenzo's teachings, but also a new awareness, a new inner strength, and the hope of a more serene and harmonious future.